again to Virtual Vision FM, your platform to all things spiritual. We are getting underway a little bit late today, but isn't it interesting that we are starting the show at 1:11 Pacific time? There's something to that, isn't there? I'm going to welcome my wonderful co-host, Reverend Ted Woodruff, to the show. It's just he and I this afternoon, so we're going to have a fantastic discussion, and hopefully you will all help and participate too. Hi, Ted. How are you doing?
Hi, I am absolutely awesome and energized for a show about energy, as it happens. Let me just find the room so that I can communicate with everybody. Yeah, oh, chat would be good. There we go. Hello, everybody. Good to see you all. Yeah, I'll tell you about my week if you like, and then I'll hand over to you to you tell me about your week. It's been the usual. It's been an intense week at turns. With my preparations to head up north in the UK. We had an angel initiation workshop course on Wednesday with the wonderful Nicola Harwood, who will no doubt be a guest at some time in the future. She's a multiple certificate collector. She's a tutor, a teacher of many different disciplines. And she came here and did the course with half a dozen people. And they are now tuned to the angelic realm, which is always good news to my ears. And it's great that that's happening here at Turns. So much has happened this year in the 8 to 9 months since this really got underway. And Nikki Harwood is a formidable character. And it's, you know, it's really pleasing for me to have somebody of her caliber teaching and guiding in all sorts of disciplines of healing and spiritual work. Whether it be Reiki, Atlantean Reiki, Corinthians healing, and this whole range of things that she does. So that was Wednesday during the day, and then that led into the Wednesday evening healing. And as I intimated last week, we'd had a client who will remain nameless, who appeared to be speaking in tongues. And it was the thought, because there was one healer with her the week before, it was thought to be Middle Eastern. And then during the week, the lady explained to me that she thought it was Latin, and being a Roman Catholic in the UK, that kind of made sense to her. Well, we all got quite sort of excited about it, obviously, because a lot of people had, one, never heard of speaking in tongues, let alone actually sort of witnessing it and whatever. So we made preparations with a video camera with a view at that time to putting it up onto social media and to YouTube and all that sort of modern stuff. Well, I'll come back to the reasons why we're not going to do that in a moment. But suffice to say that we brought the client indoors from the Roma Caravan, which was one of our healing spaces, into the main healing room. And we had only 4 of us in the room, with one on camera, and the other 3 sort of attending and watching. And within a very, very short time, she did indeed start speaking in a foreign language while she was kind of out cold, for want of a better way of putting it. One of the observers had the iPhone sort of thing and looked up some sort of keywords. And we kind of went from Spanish to Italian and back to Spanish. And eventually found that it was something like Catalonian, so it seemed. Long story short, it was kind of interesting, to say the least. And of course, with a number of spiritual people on hand with their own takes on it and what they pick up, etc., it did appear to be a non-malicious attachment within her, and so the long and the short of it was that we did a removal, in a sense, and sent the individual, thank you. Whoa, excuse me, sorry. It always catches me out when they kick energy into me, which is quite appropriate for this evening's discussion. We sent the individual, a male of Catalonian sort of background, to the light. So I sort of say it very matter-of-factly, but it's really, really interesting, obviously, when something like that happens, because, as I say, not everybody's heard of speaking in tongues, and there's even fewer probably actually witnessed it. We captured it actually the whole sort of hour of it happening, an hour or so. And then when it came to the end of it, it occurred to me that it was such an intimate and personal thing for this person to have had happened. And while she had agreed to us broadcasting it beforehand, I actually made the decision of saying, look, this is very personal. It almost spoils the moment of it, and it's too intimate. It's too intimate for the client and really for the people who perform what they did. So we have it on record. There may come a time in a few years, I suspect, where we may broadcast it or publish it, or it may be just sort of shown to a select few people. It's just interesting how that happens sometimes. You have plans and thoughts for it, of what you're going to do, and then it would just kind of, it just didn't kind of seem right to put it out there to the world. But believe me, it happened. There are plenty of witnesses, and it is on record. So that was exciting and interesting, and a lot of exciting and interesting things happened in this house. And that was the night before I headed up north. And I have been planning and hoping to do this all year, is to go and visit our mutual good friend, John David Parker. And listeners and viewers will know John David as the song and trance man, who has been on the show more than once, and channels Calling Bear and Isaac and others. And there's been so much going on in my life down here, and I've had to be focused for the majority of the year. Otherwise, you don't achieve it. And this is something that John David and I sort of talked about over the few days I was up there, that I've had invitations from all over the country and indeed different parts of the world this year. And I've had to just be determined and say, look, you know, it will happen, and it will probably happen towards the end of the year, that I can get away from this setup, because I couldn't have left it partly done, a percentage done. It's one of those things when you've got a focus and a calling and a determination and an energy to achieve something. And I've achieved, you know, without ego, a great deal in a relatively short time. So John David had been on the cards for some while. And I've got to say, like I put up on social media, but it's only written, that the journey up is quite a distance, and I haven't been that distance in a very, very long time. The last time I went anywhere in New Yorkshire was during my training into the prison service, and I went to Wakefield in West Yorkshire back in the early 80s, and I haven't been up that way since. So it was a fairly long journey, and a most uninteresting one up what we've got, a main motorway, or a freeway, as you'd have out there probably, of nearly 300 miles. The most uninteresting landscape all the way up. And then 25 miles from the destination, off you come off the motorway, and within a matter of a few hundred yards, the world changed. It was extraordinary that it was rural, it was open, it was beautiful, it was landscapes all round. It was through little villages, such as you would imagine seeing on Emmerdale or Northern. Era won't know what I mean by Emmerdale, but it's a little soap opera thing that we have in this country. These little villages with narrow roads, and the sort of stone cottages and whatever, and churches and lakes and ponds, and then big open spaces. It is a wonderful, wonderful county, East Yorkshire, but a world apart. I thought where I live in Kent is the Garden of England, and it's beautiful, but East Yorkshire is utterly enchanting and charming. And so on to Hornsea, rather than Hornsey in Essex, which is a lot nearer. Hornsey, and John and Monica's house, which is a lovely, lovely property with a lovely garden with flowers and vegetable plot and whatever, and a lovely, lovely property. And the warmest of welcomes, obviously, because they've been down here more than once. I've never been up there. And yeah, I experienced food that I hadn't had before, because Monica's German. John David spent some time out in Germany, and then of course they moved back to this country. So I was introduced to, I've got to get this right, I don't think he's in the chat room because he's watching another soap opera, Downton Abbey. That's why he hasn't been in for a couple of weeks. Burgwurst, I think it is. It's a German sausage, basically, which is absolutely delicious. There was homegrown potatoes, homegrown tomatoes, and John David had cooked chicken in coconut oil and garlic and spice, whatever. And I know this program is not about food, but my God, it's so awesome to try different cultural foods. Um, and that evening, I was introduced to schnapps, which again is very Germanic, I would imagine. And my God, is that delicious? I thought, I'm not an alcohol drinker, but that's apparently good for your digestive system. So, like, yeah, okay, I'll do a bit of health run here. And I had a couple of goes on the schnapps, which is brilliant stuff and not as caustic as I expected to be. So the food was interesting and great. The welcome was great. Of course, John David does his drop. Well, Calling Bear is within him all the time. So at one point in the evening, Calling Bear comes through, comes through. So you're sort of spending quite a lot of time talking to these spirits that are within John David. So that's always brilliant because it's like old friends re-meeting. And I know those in the chat room will get it. Some people out in the main world might think we're a nutcase talking to spirits, on a one-to-one level. My mind has always been open about this. There are some trance mediums that my jury's out on. I hold my hands up to that because I just don't believe everything I see straight away. But as we know, John David is the genuine article and very Bratwurst. Thank you. I've just been told Bratwurst. John David is the real deal, and there's no doubt whatsoever in the scheme of things that it's absolutely spot on. And so that was the Thursday. I travelled up and stayed over. I slept for England on the Friday morning, and there was a little plaintive voice about 11 o'clock in the morning saying, "Are you still alive, Ted?" And off for the afternoon to Hornsey Healers, which in my mind, I had just imagined, and I said this to the both of them, that it was a little setup in the north of England, maybe in a little village hall, with the two of them there, perhaps with a healing table, and perhaps nobody would turn up, or maybe a few would turn up. Well, how mistaken was I? Because we walk into this modern hall. There are screens on casters, which John David sort of arranged around eventually 2 tables, which he put up, the pillows on, the covers and everything ready to go. And then they came, and a lot of them came. And it was just an extraordinary atmosphere because there were so many people turned up, so many healers and so many clients, and awesome energies and friendship and love and everything that you would wish for. So from what I was expecting to what was actually there, it's a wonderful setup, and they've got a really good thing going on there. I like to feel that the Namaste group has increased exponentially over the last few months, and it was great to see something very similar with the same sort of intention of whatever going on there happening in his hometown, and him sort of leading the charge, as it were. Now, they use an interesting technique of which some people will be aware in this country, certainly it's the Ray Brown technique, which I won't go into the full details because I don't get the full details of, except there are 3 people on one client at a time, 1 on the head and 2 on the upper body. It's highly effective. I received healing. We all exchanged it around the healers as well as the clients. And I have to say that I think a lot of people know I've had an ankle injury for at least 18 months. And Glynis, who's often in the chat, I don't know whether she is tonight, Glynis has worked on it and done her wonders on it. There was a lady, Jane, up there who, whilst I was being healed, worked on the ankle, and I actually felt the vibrations of stuff, and she wasn't moving her hands, but there were vibrations on the underside of the foot, and it's never been as good in 18 months as it was afterwards. And I was walking up and down like, I don't believe this. It's amazing to be able to walk without pain after 18 months. It reminds you what you do for people and why they react so positively when their pain is sort of relieved. So my thanks to Jane if she happens to be on here, but it'll get out there. Yeah, a phenomenal setup. They, and it was interesting as well that there's the thing I do here, and I've done for years and years, is the hugging, the holding of people in hugs, which is a very good thing to do. I've always felt not everybody does it out in the world, but they do that. They embrace and they hug, and it's very personal. It's very loving in an absolutely healing aspect. And it was an absolute eye opener to see another setup, not dissimilar to mine up there. And so the Friday evening off out for a meal, great company obviously with John David and Monica, and then their daughter came over, Tanny, and she channels. Who does she channel? Alex, who is a brain surgeon, but he's mute. So there's a lot of hand movements and then writing. When if you ask a question, Alex writes. And Tanny was in trance for probably a couple of hours actually, and you kind of had to be there to see it. But fabulous confirmation, fabulous conversation, albeit sort of writing and whatever. And apparently, I was a goddess in a past life, part of the mafia in some sort of way, and I think I was shot. That's just all I can remember. It's written down somewhere. So I've got an interesting series of past lives gone on. There were two picked up on, but I must get hold of the paperwork just to reconfirm what I was. I was a monk as well. And so drove back yesterday. It's quite a tortuous journey, to be fair. It's a good 6-hour drive, and again a bit uninteresting driving back home. But yeah, folks, John David Parker and Monica, I had a fabulous weekend. I don't know whether he'll be in the chat room, but he'll probably do a listening later. And it was absolutely fabulous. Just before I left, the both of them worked on my knees. Now, Monica was on my left knee, John David was on my right knee, because I do have issues there, probably weight-related or age-related or something. John David, he won't mind me saying this, he's developing a new technique in a sense that's been given to him called the gentle touch, which is literally what it says. It is the gentle touch. And it seems to consist maybe of one finger or maybe the finger and the thumb working across the area. Now, I was under the touch of the gentle touch, and I could feel the cold, absolute cold that was coming into my knee in an area that is painful and whatever. There was clearly Isaac involved, the one who's had his tongue cut out, who was around at the time of Christ, if people remember. Isaac, who's a brilliant wordsmith and a fascinating individual. But there was also an alien aspect, and I know this is going on very randomly, but there was definitely an alien guide working. The tongue movements that John, and his face was contorting, according to Monica, this guide actually does hurt him. I think he kind of went into it on the show a few weeks ago. You can clearly see that it's not comfortable for John David. The tongue just went absolutely crazy while this alien was working. I know this sounds crazy, doesn't it? But it's absolutely real because he was right there next to me. The tongue was moving around at a speed that there's no way humanly that he could do that. He was clearly controlled, or the alien guide was within him, working through him with Isaac's guidance. The phenomenal coolness was absolutely striking compared to Monica's warmth with the regular Ray Brown warmth hands-on healing. And I stood up pain-free. Now, there's an element of it coming back a little bit today, but then I was driving in a vehicle that my knees are at a bit of a funny angle on the way back, so it's not surprising, you do re-injure yourself to a degree. But I can swear by both of their gifts and by the guides that certainly work with John David and indeed Monica. So that's been my last few days, which has been a real eye-opener, one, to reconnect with them directly in person, and two, how much happened and what I saw and what I felt and what I experienced up there. It was absolutely terrific. And on another completely random thing, John David, as we know, has he's the song and trance guy, and he's been quite a phenomenon in his own right in the music industry back in the day. And we talk about his gold disc and his platinum disc. Now, I don't know whether everybody knows this, but I certainly didn't. When I looked at them on the wall on the staircase, in order to get a gold disc, you have to sell over 50,000 records, which is quite a lot of records. What I didn't realize is that platinum, you have to sell over 100,000 records. So this guy is a friend of ours on Virtual Vision. He's a friend to many. He's a friend to me. But this guy is something, because to achieve that sort of level of purchasing power for one, or quality of musical production, he is and was quite a phenomenon on the circuit when he was there. The funniest thing, and you kind of had to be there actually talking of music, for some reason I was talking to Monica when Tanny was just coming out of trance and John David, and for some reason I looked at Monica and I said, oh, I was just about to call you Heidi. And all of a sudden, like the Von Trapp family in The Sound of Music, they burst into song for 5 minutes, because the word Heidi triggered a song that they used to sing when Tanny was a child. And you kind of just had to be there to believe it, because they didn't just hum a few things. They just launched in really happily in the lounge, without any regard for me, into this song for several minutes. So hence the be careful what you say, because if I mentioned Bare Necessities, they'd be singing that from the Jungle Book, because they do that sort of harmonic sing-song, so happily and so energized and so lovingly. But yeah, I'll never say Heidi in their company again, because they're like of the musical background and musical connection that they all have going on there. So I've been talking for ages, but it's been a great week, and it's been an interesting one for me, and I hope it's been an interesting one for everyone to hear in the room. Mm-hmm. How has your week been?
It's been busy in many, many ways. I have company in town from Regina. My birth father is here with his wife, and we've been having quite the little visit. They're here for a week, so it's kept me on my feet and on the go, so to say. And the other thing is, we are talking about energy this week, and this is part of what I've been going through as well, is a total shift energetically, and now I'm being afforded the opportunity to just sort of dismantle belief structures within myself and begin that loving restructuring into an alignment that is of more benefit to myself. It has not happened easily. I'm still in the throes of it, but it's worth it. And I truly believe that we are worth the dignity of our own efforts. So, it's just, I'm doing my work. And if it's one thing that I pride myself in, is I walk my talk. And so there we go. We'll be talking much more on energy as the show progresses. But firstly, I think I'd like to go back to Ted and have him do the 1 minute me moment and kind of set the stage for this energetic discussion. And once again, I really hope that anyone who has a camera will come on the platform and have in on this conversation with us. And if you're just too shy to use a camera, come on in and use your mic. It's all good. It's all okay. We just really want to hear from you and hear what you have to say. It's by sharing that we all learn. So give it some thought. And now I'm going to pass it over to Ted, and he can do the 1 minute me moment. Ted?
Thank you. I must remember when we come back to do a comparison with what ERA is doing at the moment, and that slight shift in emphasis, or shift in development in a way in life, because and I've no doubt ERA will remind me, and hopefully in the chat room you folks will remind me, because it just occurred to me that, yeah, it was quite an interesting, in some senses difficult journey from my mother passing to me being launched into what I'm doing now. It's a very positive thing, but it looking back, would that she hadn't passed. Good. Just addressing the chat room, thanks for the information about the schnapps there. Yes, it's absolutely delicious, and I've never had it before, and I shall probably have it again, but I tend not to do the alcohol. But if it's good for the digestive system, I'll give it a shot if it's good holistically in that way. So let's do the 1 minute me moment, which is absolutely relevant in the energetic conversation that we're going to have tonight, because all things are energy. And of course, what we don't do in this country, and this occurred to me some months ago now, that we don't take time out for ourselves and to re-energize ourselves. And it's really quite important, but we don't in this 21st century of mobile phones, social media, communications instantly and all of that. I do think we kind of lose ourselves in all that sort of paraphernalia, and don't always find us. And it's very important to find yourself on occasions. And I know I'm going just not onto the 1 minute me moment quite exactly at the moment, but I have quite an intense a lot of intense activity happening around terms of the Namaste group, and it's absolutely great and it's absolutely positive. But I absolutely value my time on my own, albeit with Maxi, which is, he's important to me, the German Shepherd dog, Max, my boy. It's very important to have time to yourself. Because you kind of refine yourself, and it's no rudeness to any of the friends and the wonderful people I have around me, but I like days where I just don't see anybody, where I can just be, even if I'm not doing very much, or even if I am doing quite a lot around the gardens and whatever. It's good just to be in your own space and disconnect from everybody, much as you love them and value their part in your life. So yeah, we don't take enough time for ourselves. And I just came up with the idea that if you did 1 minute a day, every day, at least you're taking 60 seconds for you, just you. And, relationships and children and jobs, work and all of that sort of thing do get in the way. And a guy 30 years ago said that to me, that these things do get in the way of spiritual and self, not ego, self. My idea was the 1 minute me moment, and it goes like this. You'd find a moment in the day where you can actually just have 1 minute to yourself, and you find yourself a chair to sit comfortably, feet on the ground. Close your eyes, concentrate on your breathing, and breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth, and in through your mouth and out through your nose. And the reason for reversing it is it makes you concentrate on your breathing, and that is a surefire way of making sure you are concentrating on it. So concentrate on your breathing at the same time with your eyes closed. Imagine, if you will, a grapevine going between your ankles, and then another vine going from the middle of that one down, 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 deep into Mother Earth. If you have trouble visualizing, ask. Just ask. It doesn't matter who you're asking. It can be any of your guides, but if you don't know who your guides or your spirits or whatever are, just ask out there and you'll be helped to ground, because not everybody can do that. I have trouble sometimes doing it. Take that vine down, down, down into Mother Earth and wrap it around a tree trunk, a big solid tree trunk, or a big rock or boulder, and that's the grounding aspect to stop you floating off in the sort of etheric. And at the same time as you're breathing and connecting down there, throw this eggshell of protection around yourself, of any color you like. I like gold, I like white, I find those pure colors, but it can be purple, green, blue, red, whichever one you resonate, and put that eggshell of protection around yourself. And that protects you from external negativities, from any other sort of energies that can penetrate the etheric. And spend 60 seconds. I know it takes longer to explain this than a minute, but take 60 seconds just to connect with your loved ones. They don't have to have passed to the other dimension. They can be on this earth plane. They can be loved ones that you just think of for that 1 minute, and or they can be your guides, your spirit guides, whatever. They can be loved ones who have passed, your grandmother. They can be of any connection, whether it's Native American guides, angelic guides, Buddhist, any religion. My religion is multi-denominational anyway. And spend those 60 seconds doing that daily. You will probably increase to 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes over the weeks. But if you just get that 1 minute in, give it a go. And I'm just a guy, I'm just a straightforward guy. But if you give it a go, it works, because I tell you what, I've had so little hassle since I've been doing it. externally from having the protection around myself. Very little hassle there, and I do feel pretty grounded and down to earth about everything, because sometimes the things that happen in my zone and in my life are so amazing and miraculous, you could start floating off and thinking that you know, this is all kind of unreal. So give it a try. I'm not going to steal Era's line. Over to Era for the last part of that.
Yes, and that line is try it, then deny it, right?
Exactly.
So, you know, it's really interesting, Ted, when you say things like that about, you know, this is all so unreal. That's what we tend to think. And really what we're experiencing is the sheer power and magnificence of who we truly are. There's nothing unreal about it. It's all surreal, I think, most of the time. But, you know, it just is a testament to the fact that we are miracles in motion. And miracles aren't anything that only are arbitrarily manifesting everywhere. They can happen every moment. And sometimes, you know, you can look at a tree, look at the sky, look at the ocean, and you can experience such power course through you. Even that is a miracle, that connection to the source power that you are. And that kind of segues into our discussion today about energy. And, you know, Ted, you've been talking at the top of the show about the wonderful healing energy that was experienced by so many people over the weekend. And that in itself is an energy. And we all tend to think that that is only sort of isolated to a few people who are able to do it, and even fewer that are able to feel anything in their experience of it. And really, energy is energy. It's the fabric of the universe. It is the fabric of who we are. And in that respect, everything we have to get our heads around, I think sometimes everything is that energy. Everything, the chair you're sitting on, the pen that I use to write with, the air that we breathe, it's all the same energy. And when you start to get your head around that, you begin to understand that energy cannot be destroyed, but it can morph into something else, because all it can do is change. And so this is the thrust and the impetus of creation itself, is that we are consistently creating through our energy via our thoughts and our words and our deeds, and causing things into being. I mean, this is covering so many different universal laws. It's ridiculous, but this is who we are. And if we think in terms of just being human, how many times have you heard people say, Ted, oh, I'm only human. What can I expect? Or, you know, there's nothing more that can be done. And time again, I truly believe that we are offered opportunity to uplift over that humanness so that we can experience the power and magnificence of who we truly are. That's our birthright. That's how we're made. And, you know, it's interesting when we're talking, I just mentioned universal laws, that speaks directly to the law of polarity. You know, the humanness is the lower polarity of that law, and our magnificence and our power, that soul energy, that source energy, that is who we are, that's the higher polarity. So seeing that you're only human, you're going to reside at the lower end of the spectrum, and, you know, it's like requesting permission to sit on the sidelines because you just don't want to participate anymore. And the other one is where miracles happen. And we're constantly encouraged to travel that little path up from one to the other and experience the fullness of who we can be. What are your thoughts, Ted?
Oh my, yeah. I mean, this is as big a subject, and I kind of didn't even need to do any preparation for it, because it just it is all that you said. And when you get to realize, learn, and become aware of the fact that, as you say, everything is energy, that's huge. That is absolutely huge, because it's in everything you do, everything you breathe, everything you see, every word you speak, every thought you have. It is all energy, and in the physical, and in the mind, and in the etheric, and in the auric, and in the universe. And it's huge. It is absolutely huge. Now, it was only a few years ago that I kind of balked at talking about miracles, because to me, back then, having been brought up as this good Christian boy in the Church of England, not rigidly in the Church of England, but that's what I was, and I respected that, miracles were performed by Christ. And so in respect to him and all that, you know, that he represented, you feel it's a little bit of a step to say that miracles happen within your zone. As more time has gone by, I've become a little more comfortable with the fact that actually the reality is they are miracles. There's no other way of looking at it. I'm not just talking about me. I'm certainly talking about a lot of people in my zone and the people who do amazing things. And in fact, the development of some of the people in my zone is a miracle in itself. You see the change, and the very quick change. If you don't use miracle, you can use the word remarkable. But energy is everything. And it reminds me rather randomly of one thing that happened when I got home last night. I don't think anybody set this up, but as I got out of the car and I walked to the front door and the lights had been left on for me out in the dark, there was a small, thank you, baby feather sitting on the doormat outside the front door. Now, I'm very down to earth, and I so often use the thing myself, I'm only human, because I think what people do saying that is they accept the fact that they are only human, and they don't want to be sort of appearing to have the ego going on, which is something that truly spiritual good people try to avoid, the ego aspect of everything. So there's always that fight going on with having all this energetic stuff going on, in particular when you are doing the work we're doing, and then saying, look, and it's something I say all the time, I'm just a guy, I'm just a human, there's nothing remarkably special about me. I'm just one of many who have a gift and a calling and a blessing and an awareness, and I happen to be on the screen on a webinar with people here, but I'm no different to the folks in the chat room. I'm no different to the folks out there with the potential. I just happen to be one of the faces of it, putting it out there, and I have a passion to take the word out there. There's something that drives me wanting to do that, and I don't mind being the one who is one face of it, and I don't mind if I'm criticized for it, because I have a belief system that is, in my mind, almost unassailable, because I've seen what I see and I've felt what I've felt, and it's absolutely very real. But that baby feather sitting there, that cannot, surely to goodness, unless that's the wildest of coincidences, which it might be, there are seabirds, but you know, baby seagulls have been and gone. This was months ago. To have that sitting there is awesome. So, and somebody just said in the chat room about words. Yes, Sandra. Hey, Sandra. Words carrying a lot of energy. I remember back in the day in 2003 when, and this couldn't have been coincidence, I had the heart attack for a reason. I think beyond the fact that I was overweight and smoking and stressed out and whatever. But in the bed next to me was a Reiki master woman. Now, of all the people in all the world and all the professions that could have been in that hospital bed next to me, the fact that there was an intensely spiritual individual, the like of whom, you know, the like of whom I have met subsequently, but the way that I was carried through with that extra help and an affirmation of perhaps on a spiritual level why I had for a few weeks and stopped me in my tracks, you know, dead in my tracks nearly. The universal energy works in everything to synchronize that aspect for me, my life, that they have to be there, because that really kick-started me into the spiritual work and the spiritual awareness and the spiritual workings properly, hands-on, getting amongst it, not faffing around like I have been going kind of not off the rails, but not really committed into the spiritual as I was. So everything happens energetically for a reason, and it is there, like you say, it is in everything, in the pen you're holding, in the trees that you behold out in the garden. It is all around it, and it's awesome, and it is that universal energy.
Well, I also think, you know, once we get our head around that there's no such thing as coincidence, we begin to tap into how extraordinary our power is. we like to put it down to coincidence because we weren't aware of what we were feeling or asking for or thinking in that moment. And then when it arrives and it has meaning to us, then we call it a coincidence. I think it's also really interesting that, and what this is one thing that I have been learning, and you mentioned it, that you as a healer might tend to downplay because you don't want it to appear as ego. And, you know, I totally get that. I totally understand it. But what I've been shown and what I've been learning of late is that when we, and I say we as a collective, decide to dim our own light so that we cater to the ones that aren't shining as brightly, perhaps. We like to downplay it so that we're not, you know, appearing to be larger or bigger than, or, you know, even better than. We are actually not inspiring people to be all that they can be. And so we have to shine our light as brightly as we can, not because we're better, not because we're bigger, not because we're best. It is a matter of being the quiet example of this is who we are. And in turn, encouraging that in others to be expressed, because that's how they begin to morph into that evolutionary process that allows them to understand and begin to feel the effects of being more than they thought they could be. Because we've all been there. We've all been at that place where everything just happens to us, and, you know, we don't have a direction, and we don't know what we're doing. We don't know what we're capable of. And we always tend to rely on people who have been there, who have done that, and who are actively helping others. And so, you know, it's those people that need to shine really brightly to encourage the others to do the same. And that's just the take on it that I've been getting lately from the Council of 12. I don't know if that makes sense to you or not, but, you know, the Council of 12 has also told me forever that you would never have to ask another question if you just understood what energy was all about and how it worked. And it's so true. When you think about how you get stuck in traffic, well, you were probably worried about that happening to you before you even left the house to go anywhere. And so, you know, that's the power of who you are. You know, you can create anything, whether you realize it or not. And when you get stuck in these places, and, you know, pun intended, then you are doing this by default. You're not aware of where your energy is going and what it is focused upon. So, you know, there's so much about energy. And I like to think the council has really had a huge hand in helping me come to terms with a lot of this stuff that goes on today, especially when you come and bring it all back to energy, because that's the zero ground. That's where it all takes shape. And when you think you're powerless and you think you're helpless, go back to that place and figure it out, because that energy is the roadmap for everything.
It makes total sense to me what you said, total sense. It's a balance with this polarity that you talk about as well. When you're, say, for example, and I always hesitate talking about me because I don't want anyone to think there's an ego going on, and I will never change from that. I will never change from that. But from my perspective with what I do, I think it's something like a dimmer switch which you have control over. And the reason I say that is because it's all very well shining your light, but you have to kind of do it at the right time. Sometimes just being who you are is the light enough. But for example, in the way I work or I work the group as it is, it just comes to you how to do it right, that you can be. And I know there's a guy who takes the mickey out of this, the facilitator, but it's the only word appropriate. You can facilitate so much without actually standing up and being the big I am, the big ego in the room. And my tendency has intentionally been to sit back and allow things to happen, so you can be the light that leads, and a very bright light in that, insofar as what you set up, what you arrange, what you event, and what you are known to do, i.e. in my case, the Reiki Mastership, the angelic connection, the psychic surgery, the Corinthians aspect, but also to be able to dim that switch at the appropriate moment so that others' light actually does start to shine that extra brighter in comparison, but you still don't lose that light within you, if that makes sense to everybody.
When I say shine the light, it doesn't mean, stand there in the center of the room and be the focal point. That's not what I mean. Shining your light is as simple as just holding the space open so that everyone feels safe and inspired to experience their full potential. That's all it is. And you don't have to make a big announcement about it. It's just what you do. It's just who you are. That's being who you are. Just, being who you are is holding that space. And, that's what I mean about shining my light. But if I were to like, oh, well, I'm not going to shine my light because I don't want to make anybody feel bad, I want everybody to be comfortable, then I'm not being of service the way I should be, because I think I'm still just catering to everyone else in what I believe they need, and I'm compromising myself when I do that. So lesson number one is never compromise yourself, ever. Because it never works. Well, I mean, it can, but the results are mediocre at best, right? But it doesn't mean that you walk on people to get what you want. It's just that you just are a walking, talking inspiration is what I'm trying to say. It has nothing to do with ego. Ego is all about, hey, look at me, look what I can do, and I'm so good, and don't you wish that you could be like me? That to me is the ego. But just to be who you are, and just to shine that light and hold that space so that everyone has that opportunity to step up and feel safe enough to explore their own potential. And you, when I say you, I mean, whoever's holding space, is to look at them in their full potential, because if you're looking at them as less than, they're not going to be able to be inspired to move forward. So you always try and look at people, I think, or I try to anyway, through the eyes of Source, and see their divinity and their power and their magnificence, and treat them as such. And when you start treating people in that way, then they're more bound to step up to the plate and go up a level and become inspired to explore their own capacity and potential. But if you're not kind of doing that, then you're trying to keep everybody low key, and then you bring yourself down to accommodate them in that regard. I'm not saying one is wrong and one is right. I'm just saying that there's two different ways, I guess, of using your energy. Does that make sense?
It totally does. I'm so in awe, and I've got to say this, actually, you explain it so well. And I've always said over the years when we've been either on radio or on here that your words are my words. And literally that doesn't change. So for the viewers' benefit and the listeners' benefit, this has gone on over many, many, many months. I don't know how many years it is now. That Era just sits there and expounds, and I'm like, yeah. That is exactly the way I would phrase it, but we also have the counterbalance of the opinion or the angle that you take on things, because at the end of the day we're all individual and work in our own ways. And it is when you are in a situation or a position's wrong, but where you are trying to be that one light that is providing and allowing others to develop, or to give that space to people to develop their spirituality. It is a learning curve, because it's like being, when people have children, you're not actually trained or taught how to bring up children. There isn't a course in that. There isn't actually a course in life. It's thrust upon us, and we make our own sort of life journeys, all of us individually. And the old thing about walk 20 miles or 20 yards in somebody else's shoes, and you'll truly get some sort of understanding of what
also
it's
that
like.
that expression that you use quite often, and that's namaste, which is I honor the God in you, or whatever, right?
Exactly.
But I don't mean to be spiritually indifferent about that saying, because I happen to like
whatever.
it. But if you're using it why would you also want to, when I use it, it is to, say, I recognize you, right? I don't care
Yes.
where you are on the evolutionary learning curve. I don't care. I am always going to look at you as that, because that's what I see. And when people understand, they may not be consciously aware. They don't need to be. You're just being you, but they will feel so comfortable. And because you see them differently, they will respond differently. That's what I'm saying. And if we're saying namaste, but wanting to keep everybody dim because we think that's their comfort zone, then we aren't really honoring that God within, because we should be celebrating that in every moment, not just when we're teaching, not just when we're working, but in every interaction during the day, right? You don't have to make a big deal about it, but you just sort of like express yourself differently and just look at everyone as that aspect of source, which is yourself, right? Like that's a reflection of you. And so you need to honor that as well and treat it in kind. So if we're not doing that, then we're diminishing, and that has nothing to do with empowering, I think. What do you think?
On that namaste aspect, actually, it brings back the memories of the origins of that for me. And it's a very energetic and beautiful word, I think.
Yes.
And it was actually some years ago that a dear friend of mine, Daryl, I don't see very much of him now, he started using it on social media, and I had not a Scooby what it meant. And when I asked him what it meant, his version of it, and there's quite a few different takes on it, his was my soul to your soul. And I thought to myself personally, how beautiful is that, to greet someone with that deep my soul to your soul? How profound and how beautiful is that? It also is, as you sort of intimate, has also got the I recognize the divinity within you. That's equally profound, deep, and beautiful. And then when I found that on the Indian subcontinent, it is their regular greeting with the sort of hand position, namaste. It's a kind of not submissive, but it's certainly not a dominating sort of strong handshake and how are you sort of thing. And the Brits
Yeah,
with his,
to me,
you're right, how you doing? You know,
yeah,
it's a
it's just about
beautiful,
recognition.
it's a beautiful sentiment, and as you say, recognition to use that. So I adopted it, and it's interesting now actually that in a few weeks' time I'm destined to head out to the Indian subcontinent, which is where they use that word. But I hadn't, like I say, I hadn't got a clue what it meant and where it was used. It was months into my using it as the group name that I saw a program with Caroline Quintin, is it? And she was in India, and they were saying namaste, and I'm like, yes, awesome, because it is actually something that is used on a daily basis, rather than something a little bit sort of not biblical, but something that's sort of said in only in little chapels or churches or whatever. So yeah.
Well, to me, it seems to be only used between spiritual people. And really, spiritual people are not the only reflections of ourselves. Every person is. And so it should be used all over.
Absolutely. And it is. And in India, it seems to be as prevalent as we're saying all right and ciao in Italy and whatever, the cover-all words. That, yes, I mean, unless every single individual Indian subcontinent resident is intensely spiritual, there are going to be those, that's not realistic. Although I do get a sense that some cultures actually, more of the percentage of the population are spiritually aware than perhaps we are in the Western world, but that's another sort of subject. And Colin's just saying, and I must emphasize that we have had absolutely welcome contributions from the chat room, both verbally, in person, either on the screen or talking to us if you don't want your face to be seen, or indeed in the chat room. As there's only two of us, we're going to have to sort of hold a conversation as well as read. But
Yeah,
Colin,
yeah, okay.
Colin is saying the most common greeting of a region is decided by the most popular temple in that region. The most popular greeting in Mathura Vrindavan region is the Jai Shri Krishna or Radhe Radhe. I need glasses. In Jammu region, people use Jai Mata Di. In Jaipur and nearby regions, people use Ram Ram or Jai Sia Ram. I hope I've done that justice. Thanks, Colin.
This
He's
is
a
where
man
it's
of many
helpful to have Colin on the
much
platform with
knowledge.
us. It would be helpful to have Colin on the platform so he could explain all
It would
of
be
it.
awesome if he'd like to. Whether he will or not, we put the word out there, Colin, my friend. It would be
If you don't
brilliant to
want to
hear
use your
you or to
camera,
see you.
if you don't use your camera, that's fine. You can at least use your mic. Now, Tina Elliott has said in the chat room, I worry, then I start planning in my head. What if this happens or something else happens and you're trying to be prepared? The only thing worrying does is rob you of the present moment. And there is no surprise as to what is going to happen. Your focus is your power, Tina. So whatever you're focused upon, you're inviting into your reality. So if you're worrying and hand-wringing and terrified that all these A, B, C, D, and E will happen and you don't want them to, that's what you're inviting into your reality. So you want to be mindful as to where you're placing your focus, because you know where energy goes, that there goes your power also. So be more mindful on actually thinking the things that you do want to have happen instead of the things that you don't. So I hope that's been helpful. If you want to come on the platform and discuss it some more, we'd love to have you. You don't have to use your camera. Mic would be absolutely okay. So let us know. Anyone who would like to come on the platform and be a part of this discussion, just raise your hand. There's that feature in the chat room beside your name. So let's hear from you. Now, we all like to think that, you know, I'm terrible. I worry all the time. And I have to really stop myself. I have to kind of, you know, stop and say, okay, what is it that I do want? And then turn everything around, because we're that powerful that we can invite things into our reality that we don't necessarily like. And then we stand back and go, why me? Why did this happen to me? And it's because we've been creating by default. We have not been aware. And so it's time to be aware and be deliberate. And just so you are aware, Tina, I do teach a course. This isn't an advertisement at all, but I just thought I'd put it out there for you, is that I do teach a course on the law of creation and what the creation process is and why it works. I teach the mechanics of that. So you can get things turned around. I'll just leave that right there for you. You don't have little ones, starting to think that way. Okay. Well, that's good. You know, keep it up, and you will notice that little things in your reality will start matching your efforts in that regard. And then you have to kind of claim accountability for that and say, look what I did. Look what I did. It's working. So then you'll have that behind you. Doubt is the biggest thing that you have to battle, and that's part of the worrying, right? You're doubtful that the good stuff will happen, but you're more sure that the rotten stuff will. Once you begin understanding and recording and documenting the proof that you're getting in the positive, then that will help dispel the doubt, because the only thing that dispels doubt is proof, right? So if you can prove to yourself that what you're doing and thinking of a new way actually works, then you are not going to doubt as much. And it is just a hop, skip, and a jump until you are a deliberate creator. Yeah, I like the sound of that, don't you, Ted?
I do, absolutely. Again, perfect. Now, I happen to know Tina and whatever, and not just to Tina about this worry aspect, but I don't know who told me, and maybe I was just channeled it once about worry and things that block. And it's all energy. You know, it's all energy. Worry is energy. Fear is energy. Good thoughts are energy, etc. But and doubt is a negative energy. When we put things in the way of our path, whether it's spiritual or just our life journey path, but it's all spiritual anyway. Once we put worry in there and fear in there and doubt in there, they are all little blocks, and some of them are big blocks, depending on the level at which we worry or we fear or we distrust or whatever.
Mhm.
If you can learn, and I'm just as guilty of this, and I have to keep myself and remind myself to do this, is if you take away the worry, you take away the fear, you put in the trust and you put in the positives, then that channel opens up. And it's so works if you can just remember to do it in your mind's eye and remember energetically thoughts, as I think Sandra said earlier. Thoughts are energy, and I can give several examples of what's happened to me that I know I only thought something and it happened. So over the years, and we're all learning in this. I mean, I'm not a master of it all at 53 years old. You know, I'm not a master of it full stop. I didn't just suddenly one day appear on here and talk with some degree of knowledge because I always knew it. I've had to learn very much the hard way, and I'm still learning, and we all make mistakes, and we're all only human. But that was one bit of advice that I remember someone somewhere said: if you take away the blocks of the negatives that stop their path, it opens up. It's the same with healing, which is the ultimate, perhaps to my mind, energy, is that if you open up fully to channel the healing divine energy from whatever source you choose it to come from, and that's a whole show in itself, healing.
Mhm.
If you open up the channel and you clear your mind and you are as pure a conduit as you can be, imagine the strength of that. And it's possible that, you know, I think I channel the most amazing divine pure energy as I can do, but there is a human aspect that comes into it when you're doing it. Distractions come into it with noise in the background or whatever. Your own, not so much doubts, but just your own humanity does step in at times. But the more and more clear you can make that channel when you're doing the ultimate energy transference from the divine, then that opens it up, and it works in all aspects of life. But as I say, I'm just as guilty as that. I have to remind myself that, you know, having a negative thought about someone or something or a situation, you have to just, it's no good saying to someone, don't worry, don't stress, don't, you know, and trust. You know, it's not as easy as that, you know. It really isn't.
Trying to give them the tools in order to learn how to stop doing that. We can't just say, well, don't, you know, just don't, because then it'll be better. It won't get better because they've never experienced better. All they know is the momentum that they have going. And so we need to offer those tools in order for them to understand that there are ways that you can stop doing it. And then when they employ the tools, then they begin to learn, oh, this isn't so bad, I can do this. And then they're more apt to. Now, Maria Anastasia, hi. She says, can't doubt also be a nudge to change direction? Well, I suppose it could, but I would think that feeling just crappy about the way your life is going, that would be a nudge enough. And as soon as we're doubting, we need to be catching that in the moment and then asking ourselves, you know, what is it that we do want? And changing the level of our vibration, because when we're doubting, it's very, very low. And when it's positive, it's much higher. And so when we're doubting, what we're actually experiencing is our ego consciousness saying, you know, we've been here before, we've done this before, and it hasn't worked before. And what do you think you're doing? Because, you know, this is just a waste of time, and it never worked in the past. So what makes you think it's going to work now? I mean, it's telling you all sorts of things, and it does that because the ego is there to remind you of the past experiences, but it has its mindset is only as far as its own history. And fortunately, you don't have to relive that in every moment. You're new in every moment. You can move forward. So doubt can nudge you into a different direction, but just how you feel can do that too. You could just feel kind of crummy, kind of sad, kind of, you know, blah, and you'll know that you're not going the right way vibrationally, so you should work to fix it. Doubt is the energy. That's the pivotal point, at least as far as I'm concerned. If you start doubting, you're starting to turn your boat and go the wrong way. So, in that way, yeah, it could be a nudge, but I wouldn't wait for the doubt to set in before you do that, because sometimes it's easier to change your direction before the doubt sets in, is what I'm saying. Long way around the block, but that makes sense.
That's interesting, because I've got an added bit to that doubt aspect from personal experience and others around me, that I think, again, and I keep coming back to this, I'm only human and we are only a human, but doubt, I think, is actually quite a good grounder for people, because it does prevent you from the ego aspect that you speak of, or it can prevent it, because in the back of my mind, whenever I'm about to do a healing, there is an element, just a very small percentage element of doubt. Now, it may be a partial, not disbelief, but it's hard to explain this, but what happens as a healer, to my mind, is so wondrous and extraordinary, and it always will be, that you sometimes, just in the back of your mind, you can hardly believe that you are about to do, are doing, and have done something so extraordinary to help somebody. And so whether that's doubt or humanness or uncertainty or whatever, I don't know. But for example, back in the day, I'm going to say David Icke. When I was up at David Icke, name dropping horrendously, up at the People's Voice, we did one show up there, the Psychic Clinic, and I happened to be the guest on it. And before the show happened, because I was about to do on camera to see what was wrong with, the issue, the physical issue that this guest had, and I was not pre-warned about it. In the back of my mind, I'm hoping and praying, ridiculously, really, because they're always there anyway, whatever. But you think, look, this is the time at which this needs definitely 100% to work, because otherwise it will just be, that's unlucky. Maybe this isn't all for real, what this guy does, or what the psychic surgery is all about, and what the archangelic's all about. So I had that element of doubt and uncertainty, because it's the human aspect coming in, isn't it? And the disbelief in yourself, perhaps, and the slight mistrust of those, which we all do with our guides and our spirits, whether it be the Council of 12, the archangels, or whosoever.
But that's the humanness that we all are. We're going to have that because we are human, but we're not just human. And we don't want the humanness to be driving the bus. And because the humanness has all the limitations. When you do your work, you're not doing it from your level of humanness, because if you did, you couldn't do it.
Oh, well, I'm going to have a slight disagreement there. Well, not disagreement, but just another angle on it, okay? Because I think it's vital to have the human aspect, because that's what we are down here, and it is this polarity that you speak of, that the human here and the spiritual there. So we are a vital one, rather than it being just a sort of divine intervention that strikes people and miraculously cures them or heals them or helps them or whatever. We are a vital tool in that, and it will be forever that battle through our lives of trying to merge the two of them and to understand it fully, if we ever do achieve that full state of enlightenment.
The blended being,
Yes.
it's becoming that blended being. We couldn't be in human form if it wasn't for the energy that we already are. Right?
True.
And so, when we're dabbling in our humanness, I mean, every time I go on stage and I'm going to do a mediumship demonstration, I'm in the back room before I'm introduced, and I'm almost sick to my stomach, because what if it doesn't work? What if spirit lets me down? What if I can't deliver? Those are the doubts of the human. But I have to move through that, get up on stage, and start delivering from that other place. And so you uplift through the humanness in order to do the job, and spirit meets you halfway, and the job gets done. But yeah, I mean, if I had to go out there as the little human being that has full of doubts and limitations, I'm not going to get very far. I have to lift myself up vibrationally and understand that I am in a higher place and I do have access to that. So yeah.
I understood some years ago that someone said to me that once you stop doubting yourself in your particular area, that well, this is what I was told, that there is a chance that it will be taken from you if you are so supremely confident and ego driven, to just walk out and go, hey, yeah, I can do it, that sort of thing. And it runs over, I think, into the healing and the spiritual healing aspect. But if you think that it's just your God-given right,
that's not what I was talking about at all. That's
no,
not
no,
what I
no.
was talking about.
No, what I'm saying is the doubt aspect, that is part
the
of
doubt
being
is the
human.
check and balance for me. The doubt
Yes.
is, okay, now I'm
Yeah.
questioning myself, and now I'm wondering, like, okay, I'm getting ready. That's where I'm coming from. That's the doubt. But what never fails me is spirit. And what never fails me is my choice to uplift my vibration. But getting to that point for me sometimes is a little arduous because I do doubt, because I am human. But as I'm walking up to that stage, I am constantly reminding myself that I'm more than that. And that's what allows me to get the job done. Can something really be taken away? Can you really diminish energy? Can you really take energy away?
I don't know. I must go back there. I should have prepositioned that by saying I wasn't referring it to yourself. It was an additional to, absolutely not regarding you. That's what someone once said to me about the ones that are arrogant and cocky and think they've got it all. I don't know. Now there's a point in question. I look. If one believes that spirit and councils and angels and Native Americans are providing the route to the divine energy to use, whether it's giving readings on stage, readings one-to-one, hands-on healing, hands-off healing, distant healing, if you believe in those spirits and their guides, I suspect that if they thought you weren't doing good works with the right intent and you were ego driven and money driven, but money in brackets energy, which is another big area, I don't know, but I suspect it's quite possible if you were really not doing good with, as I say, the right intent, and it was purely ego and money to the detriment of other people. But then to us, we can't imagine doing something to the detriment of, but there are some who aren't in it.
There are some who don't have the right intent, perhaps, but energy has no judgment. The only judgment that ever comes is from humans, in my mind. It's energy.
Yeah.
Energy does not make judgments. Energy, it just is. And it's up to us to mold it. And so, when I hear, oh, yeah, that'll be taken away, I think what happens, at least in my mind, I'm thinking this out loud, is that somebody's ego can get so focalized and centered that they are so driven by the external stuff that they've lost the ability to make a pure connection from within, because they begin to live externally. That isn't having it taken away. That's a choice to be external, and the ones that aren't living externally are the ones living internally that are going within. And so you don't really lose it, but your clarity certainly suffers because of it, wouldn't it? Because you're not really focused on within, you're focused on what you can get and how long you can keep it and all that kind of stuff, right?
Wow. I tell you what, you said, I'm just thinking out loud, but that had to be Ereparusian channeling, because that is spot on. That is so spot on. It makes far more sense than, it kind of, I wasn't sure. But yeah, it would probably be what you just said, that because other things take priority in the individual's mind, it's not so much taken away, it is just you almost take yourself away by doing it.
Mhm.
So it's not an external doing it, it's an internal or
It's
more
a choice.
personal
That's
thing doing it. That
exercising.
would make more sense to me. That would certainly make more sense to me.
Now, there are a
Um,
couple of
yeah.
questions. Ed. Lynn is asking in the chat room, what are your thoughts on energy from pyramids and other sites? There's been discussion out there that pyramids and other shapes give off energy.
Okay, as far as I'm concerned, I don't know a huge amount about this, but I know that Alfie, for example, if he's still listening, is a multi-talented and multi sort of investigatory individual on those. My only knowledge of pyramids is that there is a great power within them, as I understand it, and that some healers work within a pyramid in order to in the mind's eye sort of thing, in order to perform what they do. I've got a feeling, and again, if Tina's in the room, that the Atlantean Reiki people use
no,
that.
Nick uses a pyramid in his work, in his healing work, I think. I wish he was here. But to me, every shape, I mean, everything just is energy. So how can it not be an energy, an energetic focal point? But maybe what happens is with the actual shape, it amplifies or enhances, strengthens, accelerates vibrational energy. Same as crystals. Crystals amplify, right? So
Absolutely, yes, I totally agree that
then
sometimes
the ley lines and the
focal.
vortexes on the planet that really feed into the energy that we are. But again, nothing is separate from us. So it's still all connected to us. That's why we feel it so much. Like some people can go to the pyramids and just vibrate, right? Some people will be excellent dowsers because they can sense where the ley lines are. So it's all part and parcel. But yeah, I think nothing gives off a different energy. I think it's either amplified or it's not. But everything, pyramids, Stonehenge, everything has a vibration.
I agree. I think as humans, again, being only human, I think we perhaps we do rather need sometimes to go for focal things as humans, if I'm making sense. In other words, for example, in religion, we have to have our churches and our mosques and our go-to temples and whatever. We seem to need that as a collective point. And with some readers, they need to have tarot cards as a tool to what they do. And the same with it in some. I just wonder sometimes whether we think too much about spirituality and need these tools and these places and these diamonds, Herkimer diamonds and crystals and whatever, when actually it's very simple and straightforward to be able to channel it either as a medium from source, as a healer from source. It is one energy that is for all our use if we choose to, and that's it. And yet as humans we tend to kind of want to go, I need a crystal to help me do that. Actually, no, we don't.
The thing is, the crystal isn't doing the work. The tarot cards aren't doing the work. They're enhancing only because they are performing as a focusing tool. I hold a crystal all the time when I'm working, and that isn't because I expect the crystal to do all the work. This is for me to hold on, and that is my tether to where I want my focus to go. That's my reminder. But something else? It isn't just tarot cards and crystals, but a Ouija board. A Ouija board is a focusing tool. And why that seems to have a bad rap is that when you think about it, people who use Ouija boards tend to use them only to frighten one another. So when you give your focus to that, what expands? Fear expands. And so we have all these stories about how terrible evil spirits have come through because of the Ouija board. The Ouija board didn't do anything. It was the focus that was given. And your focus is either going to be driven from your own point of personal fear and desperation, or your own personal point of power. So if you're doing it with the intent to be scared out of your wits, then your experience will match that. And so it isn't the Ouija board that is at risk here. It is the people that are using it, actually, in my mind, because it's all where you place your focus. That's the nature of energy.
Do you know that's the first time somebody's put the Ouija board in explained it in the way you've done it? Because the minute anybody mentions Ouija board, I'm like, no, because that's not my bag or whatever. But you make an absolutely very valid point. But because of the very reasons you said, that people use it with the wrong intent for the wrong reasons and to engender fear and whatever. And I've noticed angel boards have been sort of starting to come out there, and I've kind of been of the view they're just a sort of they're trying to get sales and just by putting another name on it. But actually, I suppose if that is a method in order to communicate with the positive light and divine energy of the angelic, then all well and good. And maybe a Ouija board used in the correct and professional way is a tool.
Well, think of it this way, Ted. If your intent is positive and purely driven, the only thing that can result is the same, right? That's the only result you can realize. The same way that, and Wayne Dyer uses this analogy all the time, and it's brilliant. If you squeeze an orange, what do you get? If you squeeze an orange, what do you get? You get orange juice. You can't get milk. You can't get a beer out of it. And you certainly can't get coffee. You can only get what's inside of it. And so if you're using the Ouija board with that right intent and that purity of thought, that's the only result that can happen, because that is what was inside to begin with, right? If you use it in fear that there is something greater than you out there that can harm you, then you are really starting to open the avenues for that experience to match, because that's what's inside.
Wow. And I think Sandra's done a wow. Era Ouija board, what a great explanation. Yeah, I'm with you, Sandra, on that. Wow, yeah, that's a real eye-opener and way of looking at it. Tina's saying about, just going back to those crystals and the pyramids, I think with the Atlantean we work with guides and they give us crystals to use, and that part I kind of was aware of, that yeah, they kind of place crystal within the body and they perform a function. But I think, as we said, they are but a tool.
The crystal that I typically use is a Lemurian starseed crystal. And that's from Atlantis. And that's my little focusing tool. And I love them, Tina. I love them.
How interesting. And in fairness, I carry an amethyst in my left pocket all the time, as well as a hematite wand in my right pocket. Most of the time, they're on the side. But yeah, so we all resonate with crystals as a rule, probably, or we resonate with rings on our fingers, or different sort of necklaces of different crystals going on. So yeah, so interesting.
This is the energy that we are, but I just thought it might be a good time to shift the focus, if you will, and start talking about what about the energy that comes to us. I've talked with numerous empaths, and they believe that they are getting all these different kinds of energies from everyone else, to the point where many people have told me they can't even go to a shopping mall because of it. It's just too upsetting and too draining. And my heart goes out to them. But I want to emphasize here, just in my own belief structure, is that we're all empaths. If we're all the same energy, how can we not be? We know who to stand next to at a cocktail party and who to stay away from, you know, without even meeting them. We just know because we can feel that energy. What really astounds me is that there are empaths out there that will come to me and say, you know, I know when someone's going to have a heart attack. I know when someone has a migraine. And I'm like, well, that's really wonderful. What do you do with that information? And they said, oh, just feel it. There's no point to feeling it. It's not yours. And so there must be a conscious effort just to understand what is yours and what is not. But you know something that I rarely hear an empath say is that they walked into a room And they stood beside someone who had so much joy in them that it was just sheer delight to be able to stand next to them. If you can feel the negative, lower vibrational energy from people, it stands to reason, because of the law of polarity, that you can also feel the joy and the happiness and the peace. And yet I don't see us all picking that up. We're all the same energy. We have the opportunity to choose in the moment what we wish to feel. And if we are paying attention to our own energy, the lower vibrational stuff doesn't even come near us, because it can't, because it's not in alignment. So if you're drawing a lot of fear-based people into your life, if you're drawing a lot of, this energy is really wearing me down, then you need to start looking within yourself to find out why you believe that these other people have a hold over you. And the one thing that I will add to that is that if you are wanting to go somewhere and yet you're kind of leery as to what kind of vibration and energy you're going to be receiving, the best thing that you can do is not be so focused on what you're going to get out of a situation. Be more focused on what you contribute energetically. Are you going to walk into that room smiling and really caring about people and being happy and spreading joy? Or are you going to walk in there all timid and afraid to talk to people because they might give you a headache? It's all about what you contribute and not so much about what you get. So remember that when you want to go out. But when we are out, what is that vibe that goes on? What is that vibe trying to tell us? I guess that's the question I want to pose for right now. Ted?
It's all energy. And external to our immediate bodies, people are aware of aura. Most people are. The one I speak of, like the Ready Brek kid, is the best representation in the advert of the aura. There are several layers of aura, and I can't remember all of them, but there's at least 7 going on, depending on your awareness and way to work within the energetic fields. I work within energetic fields, but I'm not always sort of aware of them. But yes, as far as empathy is concerned, and I'll come back to the auric fields in a while, and there's probably someone in the chat room who will tell me what they're called, and I should know them because I did the Corinthians, but there's certainly the auric and the etheric, and then another one going on. I don't remember everything. I was listening, honestly. Empaths, yeah, any number of those have been around in my zone recently, and one in particular has been around the last few weeks. And it comes back full circle in a sense to my 1 minute me moment and the part of protection, because it's really, really simple to deal with the empathic aspect. Is one, to be aware of your chakra system and to close down each and every chakra before you go out in the world. That's just my opinion. It doesn't mean I'm necessarily right, because some people choose to keep at least their third eye open when they're going out. But if you are subject to negative energies and picking up on other people's emotions, close down your chakras. That's one bit of advice I would put out there. Secondly, is to throw that aura of protection around yourself each and every time you leave the house, and throw it around yourself in your mind's eye when you're walking down the street or you're encountering and talking to another energetic being, which is any being that's going on. There are people who are energy vampires. Some of them know that they are, some of them don't, and they suck the energy from people literally as you walk past them in the street. Sometimes when you're sitting with someone, you will feel drained of your energy because they suck your energy and they go seeking it, again, knowingly or unknowingly. So like I say, and I like to keep things very simple in everything that I do, because then I can understand them as this human, that keep it simple and protect and ground and close the chakras, and have your mind aware of that. In my case, I actually, despite what people think, and I'm here on a show for a couple of hours talking sort of apparently quite knowledgeably about things, I'm actually genuinely a shy guy, but I'm okay when I'm on subject because I know what I know and I can share what I know, and I've seen quite a lot in my young life. But if I enter a room full of strangers or people who don't interest me, and that sounds really arrogant, but there are people who you go into a group and they're talking about things that are just so naff and uninteresting for me. It might be about football, it might be about sport, it might be about whatever, but there are some really uninteresting groups of people out there in the world who are just talking about their sort of domestic lives and who did this, who did that, and gossips and whatever. I sit in that room really uncomfortable because I become extremely self-aware. I become aware of the fact that I'm not interacting with those people, and then all eyes are sort of coming on me and what's the matter with him or whatever. When I'm around a group of like-minded people who are on subject, not even if they, I don't sit talking to people about spiritual matters all day long, even on the Wednesday evening healing exchange. It's very normal and other subjects, but you do find those within your energetic zone are far easier to feel comfortable with. So I've been there and can be there on that empathic level. I am, like anyone else, a negative situation, which is very rare, where you feel assaulted by somebody verbally or indirectly, we all react like a human and put the barriers up or put those blocks up and go, how dare you, sort of thing, and allow it to impact on us. And you have to keep reminding yourself to protect ground, close the chakras down, and not allow that negativity to come in. But we all do it. We all do it. Whatever spirituality we're on.
You can sit in that room full of negative Nellies who are gossip, and you feel uncomfortable because your alignment, your energy alignment, your vibration doesn't jive. And when there is no alignment, the universe can't put you in the same room, let alone on the same block. And so you will find cause to get up and move away. They will find cause because they can feel your energy. They're just not aware of it. They could feel most uncomfortable and they'll start talking quieter or they'll move off to the side. I mean, things get taken care of. It isn't that it isn't that we need to force them to change to be different. It's just to notice that there's a misalignment of energy going on and it will be taken care of because, that's just the way the universe works. Now, Tina actually made a very good statement that it's up to us on how we use our energy. And I couldn't agree with you more. You're embodied in that human vehicle with your source energy, and you get to use it any which way you want. All I think that we're saying is that if you're not experiencing wonderful times or good feelings, then there is something that you can do. And just laying down and rolling over, is doable. But you can start, using your energy to tap into a higher vibration that is more pleasing. That's all we're saying. I like your analogy though, Ted. That was a good one. The gossipy kinds of things.
It's just a personal experience of my life that, I'm aware that people see me as perhaps this really sort of confident guy who knows what he knows and shares it with other guys and blah, blah, blah. But I am, and I've said it more than I can believe tonight, but I am a human. And I'm as victim to life as anybody. I've been there. I've had episodes of depression, which I've turned into a positive, interestingly. Now, there's an interesting energetic sort of aspect of depression, which sometimes cannot be helped if it's a physical ailment and one of the chemicals in the brain depletes and you need the chemical rebalance to happen. But if you can turn every negative into a positive, which is what I did eventually, but trust me, I was there wanting out for many months back in 2003. Tough times. We are all human, and so we are prone to energy because we are energy. There are external energies. There are the empaths that we've just been talking about, and it's a big old universe and a big old world and a big old life that all of us are thrust into down here. It's a whole another show as to whether we choose to come down here or whatever. But we are there's multiple aspects to being a human, multiple, because there's survival needed. which you get through energy, i.e. food and whatever. There is survival that you need to be employed and have some sort of work and income in order to afford to pay for your food and your drink and your bills and all of that sort of thing. Money is energy. And then the psychological and the spiritual totality of all of us again is energy. So it's not surprising that sometimes in our lives we have a little bit of a wobble sometimes, because we're juggling, in a sense, I've just thought about this, we're juggling an awful lot of energies and trying to keep them all sort of balanced and you know, throwing them up in the air.
And when you think there's only one energy and we're vibrating at very speeds. And when it comes to money, money is the same energy as the chair you're sitting on. And you don't go to bed at night worrying about how many chairs you have, how long you can get more. No. It's all a matter of perception and belief structures, what you believe money to be, what you believe joy to be. You know, it's really, we may have a lot of different vibrations coming at us, but we only have one choice to make ever, and that is how do we want to feel?
Actually, I do lay awake on a Tuesday night, making sure I have got enough chairs for the next day, as it happens. No, I get your point. It's a very valid one, but it just tickled me the way you said that.
Maria is asking if a misalignment of energy, is that different levels of evolution? Not really per se. I think the way I meant it was probably misalignment was not a good description. Probably non-alignment would have been better. So it's when you have those days where you're feeling kind of down and you're not attracting people around you that are up and bubbly. You're attracting into your life or that day or that hour people who are kind of feeling down too, and you're sort of commiserating with each other, and that doesn't help because whatever you're focused on expands. That energy expands and brings you more of whatever you're focused on. And so what you want to be reminded of, or remind yourself of in every moment, is that you have a choice on how you feel. And if you want to feel better, just ask yourself what you want. What is it that I want right now? Oh, I want to feel good. And then start thinking of things that help you feel good. Because if worrying, and this sort of speaks to what Tina was saying in the beginning, if worrying could fix things, we wouldn't have a world problem, right? Worrying doesn't solve it. So it's time to try something different. And when your vibration changes, the people around you begin to come in and come out, and you begin to form new alliances. So it's not about misalignment or an evolution. It's just a direct response of the vibration that you are emanating in any moment. The universe doesn't really care whether you want to feel that way. The universe doesn't really care if you really don't want negative Nellies around you. It just responds. That's its job, just to respond to your energy and match it. That's it. So whether that's a misalignment or non-alignment, you will always attract in that which you are and that which you vibrate. So that's what that was. And so when we were talking about the negative Nellies all gossiping and over in the corner, they do that because they feel comfortable with each other. They feel comfortable doing that activity, and it's because they're all vibrating that. And when Ted is sitting there and he's not vibrating that, he's going to feel that level of discomfort because he's not vibrating the same way. That's a different alignment, right? So yeah, that's how that works. I hope that explains a little bit there, Maria.
And here's an interesting adjunct to what you just said, because it so resonated there about the expansion of energy, about what you would like or want to happen. And it, you know, that so makes sense of what has happened here. But this is the on the ground part of what Eric just said. That back in the day in January, when we started out here, we had 3 or 4 people on a Wednesday evening. And I put it out there in my mind and out on social media, mind you, as well. But I put it out there of the desire to have more more and more and more people coming, and hoped and desired and wished for it. And then all of a sudden, in early February, the house was descended upon by at least 20 people. Now,
Yeah.
if that isn't an expansion of energy at work, hello, you know,
Yeah.
and that's just clicked in those. You are so wise, Eric. You are so damn wise. But that's so right, because it is an expansion of energy that happened, and that is what happened. And it was like, whoa, what happened there? Seriously, I thought it can't just be down necessarily to be putting the events up on social media or wishing for it, or I've built it and they'll come sort of attitude. So that's an absolute expansion of energy moment that happened there. And
Yeah.
isn't it glorious? So imagine the potential of energy itself. The potential is huge, absolutely huge.
Mm-hmm. It is, and it's us. It's who we are, and it's how we use it. Our focus depends. Our focus is how we're using it. And so if we want, this is just the way life is, and these are the kind of people I'm destined to be around because that's all I've ever got in the past. Nothing ever happens arbitrarily. Everything is a direct match to what is going on within you vibrationally. So if you want to have different people around you, then put out a different vibration. And that doesn't take much at all. It's just a matter of asking yourself, what is it that I want today? What do I want to experience today? What kind of different things would I like to have happen today? And then really just being happy that that opportunity even exists, even though it hasn't happened yet. The opportunity exists. That's pretty amazing just in itself. And so when that happens, the people around you that have been the negative Nellies, they too, they don't understand it on an awareness conscious level in that moment. But what will happen is they will feel you differently to the point where it offers them the opportunity to respond to you differently than they have in the past, because that little ripple in your vibration will offer that opportunity. So negative Nellies have an opportunity to change. You have an opportunity to change how you respond to them. And then you also create the opportunity for a better vibration to come in around you and interact with you. So there's so much possibilities, and it's all up to you. Life just doesn't happen. Life just doesn't happen to people. We unfold it with every breath, with every thought, with every feeling, with every word, and with every action. That's life unfolding. And we cannot sit on the sidelines and wish things could be different, because that doesn't work either. It really takes hands-on, deliberate, and conscious awareness of where you're placing your focus. And I think it's extraordinary. That to me in itself is a miracle.
I can't really add to that, except I do suspect that there are some people out there, in fact, maybe many people, to whom life does just happen because they're not necessarily spiritually aware, and they may well go through their lives with their heads down, work, children, relationships, and with a kind of unawareness of their spirituality, although very often it's in extremis when they do actually turn to the spiritual aspect, whether it's at a point at which, say, medics and doctors can't help with an issue that they've got in disease, whatever. But yeah, I think there, and those, it's not a, I'm not going to say I feel sad for them or whatever, but hey, what they're missing out on, those who just make it through life a little bit ploddy, how more exciting is it when you do realize that there is this extraordinary energetic and spiritual aspect.
What's so beautiful about the universe is that everything has a purpose, everything. And so there are souls that have reincarnated or incarnated onto this plane of existence, specifically at this time and for eons in the past, not to participate. They're not here to learn and grow. They're not here for any evolutionary purpose. They're just here to be the catalyst for others, so that others can say, well, I want more out of life than what they're experiencing, and it causes them to start seeking. Sometimes that's that soul's lot in life. And so
they do have a purpose.
Yeah, so it is a purpose.
They kind of do.
They're impetus. It's an impetus for other people's growth. And that is why the council always has told me is, offer the tools and move along. Offer the tools lovingly and move along, because you don't know whether that soul is here to participate or not. It's just a matter of, you can't stay and hold someone's hand if they weren't expected to get it anyway. So you give the tools and move along. And love them unconditionally, as you meet them, as you give the tools to them, and as you move along from them, because that's all it's required for us, is to love unconditionally. It doesn't mean that we have to, make a stop on our path until a person gets it, right? Because chances are they may never get it because they're not here to get it.
Wow, nearing the end of the show, that particularly resonates with me and actually has put something in perspective personally, in a connection that I have had over a number of years. That yes, and I was about to say that catalyst aspect of someone who is not here to expand their own sort of development that much. They do act oddly enough as a spur to others, or to say me as an example, to really push for the stars. So they kind of have a purpose, but not their own essential
But see,
divine purpose.
it isn't even for us to understand what their purpose is. We have a hard enough time understanding our own. For all the people I talk with, and I say, well, what's your bigger picture this lifetime? They go, I don't know. But and they don't. Yet they can presume to know what is going on in someone else's life, and that should never have happened. That happened too soon, and so we make assumptions that way. We need to pay attention to our own vibration. We're all the same energy. Everyone around you is sending a ripple through you that either resonates with you or causes you to go within and say, why does that bother me so much? It's because that person touched a wound, an energetic wound, that needs your attention and requires, healing on deeper levels. We should be thankful for everyone in our life, because as a reflection, we all have this extraordinary job of helping one another down the path, not by taking their hand and say, hey, let's come with me and I'll show you where to go. That's not what I mean. I mean that everyone we interact with, whether it's pleasant and pleasing or not, is showing us something about ourselves. And so we're doing it for others as well, right? So, and that's the beauty of the balance of the universe. It just always works in that total balance.
Absolutely right. And actually, and we are 2 minutes towards the end of, I'm just thinking in my mind that the energetic force of, I know Facebook has its, its way, and the internet has its way, and there are some for and against, and the positives and the negatives, but it just comes to mind, and people who are sort of in the chat room here engaging, that it is in itself, the internet and social media, a form of energy in itself. And there are any number of people I haven't actually met face to face, and yet there is an energy connection between them. There's one in particular, I'm not going to name them because they know who they are, but we've never met, but there is a connection and an energy exchange that goes beyond reason in some senses, it's absolutely extraordinary that you connect on that level. And I've had people message me some while ago now, for example, when I was putting out my irony on the internet, and tongue-in-cheek, which is pretty much always what it is. It's certainly never meant to be offensive or unpleasant. It will be ironic attitude. They actually messaged me one day and said, look, I've never met you, but keep up what you're doing, because you bring a positivity to my life. That's kind of the general sort of thing. And I read that and I thought, oh my God, if it only needs one person to resonate with what you're saying, or for you to be meaningful in their lives, just one person makes it all worthwhile. Hopefully I have an effect personally, without ego, on more than one person out there. But it's good to hear that sometimes from someone, to say, yeah, keep doing it, because it cheers me. And that's an energy exchange, and it's without being immediately in person. And part of me thinks with some of these people I haven't ever met, you kind of go, hey, wouldn't it be great to meet up sometime? Something might kind of be lost there, because it would be very much the norm, maybe forever be at the distance and have that remarkable love and energy connection without having to, and experience it through the spiritual energetic channels, if I'm explaining that right.
I think that message you received is absolutely amazing, because what that person is saying, and you don't have to preface it with, without ego, what that person is saying is namaste. And because of namaste, you have helped me on my path. What are you here to do this lifetime, Ted? You're here to help people on their path. And so you're doing your job, and that's just a universe just matching that vibration. And you're not always going to hear about it, and nor should we, because if we wanted to hear about it all the time, about what an impact we make, then we would be functioning from ego. But we don't always hear, and we just have to believe that what we're doing is making a difference. And that in itself is just having faith, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. On that point, actually, yes, you don't always hear. You don't always hear. And it just takes one person randomly every so often just going, you're important to me, to make it all worthwhile. And if you do just impact on one individual in a show like this, on a social media like Facebook, on the internet in general, or even in life, if you energetically impact on them, just one person, hey, job done in one sense.
Okay, I think we're winding down. We're at the just over the top of the hour, but we did start late today, so I wasn't really concerned about the time. Thank you, each and every one of you, for what you brought to the table today. It has been extraordinary, and just learning and sharing. I would really like it, though, if you guys would come onto the platform once in a while, because we have this specifically for that, and it would be nice to be able to use it once in a while. Now, I will not be here next week. I am taking next week off, and Nina will be here with Ted, I believe. Nick is still busy elsewhere, so he will not be attending as far as I know. That could change. Hopefully it might. So I wish you well. I am so hoping that each and every one of you in the chat room today, and those that watch from the archives, understand the magnificence of who you are and the power that you yield, and the capacity and the potential that you have in every moment. You're worth the dignity of your efforts in finding that out. So, having said that, I bid you goodbye for a couple of weeks. Ted?
I can't add to that. Those are beautiful words, except to say with the biggest energetic to you all, namaste.
See you next time.
Bye-bye.